What's up, everyone? Welcome back to 5 Questions with the Beast. Today, we're sitting down with Fouad Abiad, who is a bodybuilder and a podcaster. I really enjoyed talking to him. We hear about where he came from in his humble beginnings to where he is now, owning his own supplement and clothing line, Hosstile. I had a great time sitting down with him. Make sure to stay tuned to the end of the video where we talk about some of the biggest news that we've ever had here on this channel. I hope you all enjoy this interview. So before we get into it, hit the subscribe, hit the like, and hit the notification bell. Now let's get 5 questions in. Fouad Abiad. So I really can't believe that this interview is happening. I've been watching your podcast for so long now, and this is kind of like a dream come true. Like when I reached out to you, I was expecting like no response, but you responded in the same day, which was crazy. But I'm really excited for this interview. During this interview, we're going to talk about how to develop a great tier system, how to be a balanced bodybuilder, how to be intense in a workout, why you're a self-proclaimed legend, and even what to do on a third date. So, Fouad, I hope you're ready.
Okay. You picked all my favorites. I am ready. Thank you for having me on, Will. I appreciate being here, man.
Yeah, I'm really happy you're here, so let's get into the interview. So I like to start off by hearing about my guest origin stories. And from what I heard, you said you like basically lived off of like bologna sandwiches when you were younger. You said you grew up without a lot of money. And I also heard that you say that your mom made some of your clothing. Can you tell me what it was like going through school and other things like that during this time of your life?
Yeah. Well, first, I want to make sure I clarify that my parents gave us everything we needed, and we had a home that was rich with love, and we never felt like, I mean, it was hard because it kind of felt like we didn't have material things. We didn't have like the sugary cereals that taste so good and all the toys that all the other kids had, but we were all really together, and I had like, looking back on my childhood, it was very good that way. But yeah, it was tough going to school with, not the coolest shoes, or not the latest toy that came out in grade school. People were running around with all the, like I see in the background there, you have every toy known to man, looks like. So it's I didn't have that kind of thing, but it was okay. I think that type of upbringing kind of made me work harder and kind of made me who I am today. But yeah, it was definitely not, looking back at it, I appreciate it now, but at the time I was very conscious and at times almost ashamed that we couldn't have, when you're a kid, you don't realize that it's not as important as you think it is. So like the kid with the coolest shoes or the kid with the coolest clothes, when you're in grade school, that's a really important thing to you. And at the time it was kind of an issue for me and might have caused embarrassment or anything like that. But I find it's hard probably for kids to go through now with social media, because who knows what they're going through, bullying wise. But looking back at it now, being older, I'm very happy that I kind of lived the life I had to live.
Yeah, like I also, I don't really like have like everything that I want. Like I'm not like a bodybuilding YouTube channel. We're like a comic channel. So what we have back here is going like to our like main like kind of thing that we do, which is comic books. We talk about them and just try and have fun. But like, I'm not the most popular kid at school. I don't have like the best clothing either, or the best shoes, but I'm still just trying to go through it. I'm trying to like become like a better as a person. Like I don't get a lot of like motivation, or not motivation, but like a push from other people, like saying like, oh, I believe that you can do this. They're all trying to like push me down kind of thing, and they don't really believe in what I can do.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
Usually I'm playing the podcast role, and I forget I'm being interviewed. So no, I think that's going to happen over and over to you in your life, because even at 42, with all the things I've done, that's continuously happened to me. Even when I started my podcast, a lot of people said, hey, no one's going to watch a 2-hour podcast with you talking to some bodybuilder. And now I think it's really it's become kind of a highlight in the bodybuilding world as far as media goes. So I think it's good that you're doing what you're doing. I think it's good that you're pushing through, even though people are telling you it's not cool or whatever it is. So I think that's something that's going to happen to you a lot. And if you learn now, if you're learning already at this age that that's okay and you can do it anyway, then you're ahead of the game.
So like 8 years ago, my mom had a pretty big stroke, and it was like very serious, and like that was like very scary for the whole family because we had no idea what was going to happen.
Hmm.
And she ended up pulling through, but like that was like the push that I got, and I was around like 7 or 8 at the time, and when I was at that age, I was like, oh, that happened, so I really wanted to like push forward and do like great things.
Hmm.
And then like 2 years ago, my dad was like, he was told that he had like pre-diabetes and he had like some kind of heart problem, and he really had to change like everything he did. So
Hmm.
that was also a big scare. So like when that happened, I was like, all right, it's really time to focus on becoming healthy, eating healthy foods, and like going to the gym, try and become healthy because like that's my drive.
Yeah.
So
Well, you got that. You got to look at that early on in life. I mean, kind of the same thing happened to me. My dad had his first heart attack at 64, I believe. And when he was 64, I was 14 years old. So my dad had his first heart attack at 14. I think that's when I started getting healthy and eating better. And bodybuilding kind of was an offshoot of that. But there was always that trigger, right? So those two things, and sorry to hear about your mom and your dad going through issues, but those two things are kind of things that are catalysts for you to do what you're doing. So that's great.
yeah, I agree with that. Can
Yeah.
you also tell me what led you to bodybuilding?
Well, to be honest with you, I was never into bodybuilding. It was kind of like I was just wanting to be healthy. And like I said, I was kind of just training to lose weight and training to look good on the beach and look good in clothes and look good at the bar and that kind of thing. And it was almost a bet that got me into it because I thought it was stupid. I remember seeing a cover of Flex magazine and Dorian Yates on the cover. And I used to read Men's Health, and that's more of like a beach body mag. And um, I saw the Dorian Yates magazine. I'm like, who would want to look like that? But little to be known to myself, a year later, I was at a bodybuilding show with a couple friends. What happened was I started bouncing at a club, and it was kind of cool. Like the guys, I noticed the biggest guy would walk through the club and guys would just move out of his way. And I'm like, that's kind of cool, but it still wasn't enough for me to want to be big. I just thought it was cool.
Yeah.
But he was also a competitor. So a couple of my friends were like, hey, we're going to watch him compete. So I went to the show and I saw him compete. And I thought it was really cool, but I'm like, it still wasn't triggered until I was like, I think I could do this. It's not a big deal. So a couple friends bet me. They're like, we bet you can't do it. And I was like, all right, I'll take that bet. So I bet them that a year and a half later at our local show here that I would compete. And that was kind of the trigger. It was all just a bet. It was all just a stupid bet with a couple friends. And here I am 40 years later with an entire career history. So it's weird how
Yeah.
things can come about, right? Like when I talk to people on the show, most of them will be like, oh, I loved Arnold or I loved whatever superhero. And that's what got me into bodybuilding. And I started when I was 14 years old. And I kind of have this different story where it was like, I kind of fell into it, I guess. So I think I just needed something too, because I played football in high school and I knew I was never going to be a professional football player because I was too short. So I think I needed some type of competitive outlet, and that's another reason why bodybuilding kind of came about.
I started off playing golf, which was like one of my big things. Like I started playing golf when I was like seriously like 5 years old, and like
Yeah,
I was like played in my first tournament against like 10-year-olds, and
yeah,
I somehow like won the tournament. But then like after that, I kind of got burnt out when I was like 10 because I would just do that all day every day until it was dark outside. Like I would get
mhm,
home from school at 3, and then I would go to the golf course until like 8 or 9. It was
yeah,
just a lot. So then I was like, I want to try something new. So I got into powerlifting,
mhm,
and that was when I started at 10, and I just finished that around like 15 years old, and then I transitioned to bodybuilding. But with powerlifting, I was able to compete in 4 like competitions. I set 2 American records and 19 state records, which was like I thought was really cool at that time because I was a golfer who was not the strongest kid ever, and then
yeah.
like setting records, I was like, this is pretty cool. And then
What records do you hold?
so I hold the record in the deadlift, and then I hold the record in like my total.
That's awesome. What's your record deadlift?
Uh, I was 13, I weighed 84 pounds, and I did 225.
Oh my God. That's amazing, man. So it's safe to say you go all in when you do something.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
once I find something, I take it really serious, and I just want to get it down and be good at it. Like,
Yeah.
because I just started bodybuilding back in August, and I've been taking this very seriously. Like, I think this is like what I really want to do. I'm trying to like stay on this path and become better at this.
Yeah.
So
It's a lifelong thing though. The thing that's tricky about, well, I guess it's like that with every sport, but it's with bodybuilding, it's tough because you never feel like you're finished.
yeah,
Like there's never like it's hard because you want to be really great at it, but there's never really a finish line. It's like there's always something that can be better. So I think that's why people start this when they're young, and then it ends up being a lifelong journey because you never really feel like the journey is finished. You know what I mean?
yeah,
So you found something that's going to be tough for you to win. I mean, I don't mean win in a sense of competing. I mean win in a sense
yeah.
of feeling like you finished. So
Like earlier last year, like at the beginning of 2020, I was in wrestling. It was my first year of high school wrestling, and I was 100 pounds, and I, I hated being skinny. And I was like 100 pounds for like most of my freshman year, or
mhm,
all my freshman year. And then in July, I met Stan Efferding because he was doing seminars and he came to our gym. So I met him in person, and like he had like a conversation with me, and
yeah,
like I don't know, something clicked. His story was similar to mine, like being the skinny wrestler, like not eating a lot. So like I don't know, something just clicked, and I just started eating because I hated being small.
yeah.
So I wanted to just like gain weight, and then that was in like July, I said, and I was around like 110, I think, around there, and now I'm like 135 ish. So I've get put on a lot since July because I've transitioned to having like from 3 meals a day to having like 6 meals a day, just like
Yeah.
trying to have meals like every 2 to 3 hours, just eating when I'm like hungry, eating like the good foods, having a shake or something.
Mhm.
So I've really trying to been like help with that. I'm
How
still
hard
trying to gain weight too.
how hard is how hard have you found the eating 6 times a day?
Well, it was hard to get used to, but
Yeah.
I had a really bad like eating disorder kind of thing. Like I would never eat anything. That's why I was so light.
Yeah.
Cause like I would like never like eat anything. Like I used to like hide my food and like throw it away later. Like I had such
Oh,
a bad problem with it. Like,
okay.
and I finally overcame it, and that was like such a hard path for me. Like
Yeah.
food was like not my thing at all. Like it
Yeah.
was just one of those hardest things for me.
I can't understand that. Do you mind if I ask? I know this is your interview, but I'm just curious. Do you mind if I ask you why I can't I'm trying to figure out why that happens. Like why would you throw the food away? You didn't want to be fat or you didn't like to eat or what was it?
I don't know. I just think I didn't wanna eat, cause
Oh,
like,
okay.
I don't think I just wanted to eat anything. So,
So you just flipped the switch and started eating.
yeah, it
Yeah.
was crazy, like, cause I went home and I ate, like, the most I ever did. Like, I had, like it was just, like, crazy, like, cause he was like, "Start eating steaks. If you wanna eat steaks, you're gonna get bigger." So I was like, "Dad, we're having a steak for dinner." So
That's great. That's very
it
great.
just went
Good for
from
you, man.
there.
Yeah, good for you, man. That's awesome.
Thank you. So now moving on to another topic. This is a two-part question. I want to talk about anxiety and ego. So I heard you said that you always had to deal with anxiety, and I heard you say that your brother hated the idea of you bodybuilding. Do you think that was a factor of your anxiety because you wanted to show your brother that you can like be good at bodybuilding?
That's a good question because I've never even considered it. Okay, so we'll split it up. The anxiety is something that's always been with me. I think I actually, I wasn't cognizant of it at the time, but I think I actually had it in high school. Um, I think I had bouts of anxiety in high school, but I just thought that, oh, I'm just nervous. What's the big deal, right? Because that's what you think. Anxiety sometimes just feels like you're nervous. But it got stronger as I got older and when I started bodybuilding more. And I think when I got bigger too, I started putting on weight. I was like over 250, 260, 270. And then I felt people were looking at me more. So that caused more anxiety, which is strange because you'd think to yourself, well, why are you gaining all this weight if you don't like people looking at you? Right. So it's like kind of counterproductive. But for some reason, it was something I love doing and I just want to do it anyways. But I think the anxiety is just something I don't know if it's genetic, but I think it's something that came on early in my childhood. I think the thing with my brother, though, didn't necessarily cause my anxiety, but the interesting thing, the reason it's interesting that you say that is I definitely think there was a subconscious underlying element of I will show him because, as I said, my dad was very old when I was not very old, but he was older when I was born. My dad was 50 years old when I was born. And my oldest brother is about 12 years older than me. So he kind of acted like a father figure in a way because he was closer to my age. So I still took direction from him, but I also could relate to him. So he was kind of like my father figure in a way. And you always want to look good to your father or your older brother or whatever. So when he said I couldn't do it, yeah, I think to this day, I mean, look, me and that brother, my oldest brother, are in business together, and he is one of the partners in Hosstile. And to this day, I still am trying to prove myself. So your question's very valid. I do think there's an underlying reason why it's something I want to do. It's definitely part of my reasoning for wanting to be better and good at it. But anxiety wise, I think that's something that probably had developed earlier on in my life. That only got better with learning about it. The more I learned about it, the more I read about it, the more I tried to do the book work about, how to overcome it. That was the only way I kind of overcame my anxiety, which I haven't. It's weird. Anxiety is not really it's not a disease. It's not something you overcome. I still have bouts of anxiety to this day. It's just not as strong as it used to be because I've learned how to deal with it and cope with it.
What led from your brother saying that you can't be a bodybuilder to soon working with you for Hostile?
Oh man, there's a 14-year gap there, 16-year gap there. More, I think. So I was 24 years. This is how the story goes. I was working for my brother. Around 22 years old, I was still bouncing on the weekends, but I needed a good day job. So I started working for my brother while I was bodybuilding. And what I did for my brother was sales, and I would do sales for the big three, like Ford, Chrysler, GM, and a lot of smaller plants. And we would sell industrial work gloves, like welding gloves, factory gloves, all that kind of stuff, and other protection equipment. But anyway, so at one point he said, look, I had been working for him for about a year and a half. He said, look, you gotta make a decision. You can't be my sales guy and be 285 pounds walking into meetings blown right out, scaring people. It's not going to work. We need a guy that looks like a salesperson. And I think I don't think he really cared about the looks, to be honest, looking back at it. I think he just wanted me to make a choice, and he wanted me to make his choice. He wanted me to go that way because he thought it was safer and healthier. And I think that's valid. But I ended up choosing the other route. I said, okay, well, I guess I can't work for you then. I gotta do this bodybuilding thing. And soon after that, we had the conversation, and he said, look, I don't think this is a good idea. I don't think there's a lot of money to be made. I don't think it's healthy. And all these other things. So I said, look, it's what I want to do. I love it. I'm going to go ahead and do this thing. And he was supportive, even though he didn't agree with it. He was supportive. He still came to my shows. He flew to California to watch me compete. They would go to the Arnold's every year when I competed. And I think he saw me take it so seriously and work so hard at it that he realized that the passion I have for it was going to be the same passion I would have for the company we built. And I think that's why he took that step. Business is his thing. He's a businessman. He owns 6-7 businesses. And I think he knew that work ethic that I had in bodybuilding is going to be the same work ethic I'm going to bring to the company. And I think that's where the bridge is.
Yeah.
So I think that's where we connected.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now the next part of the question is, the next topic of the question is ego. And you've talked about ego a ton in your podcast. You said that when you were in your early 20s, you were really arrogant, and you said that you felt deserving. When did you realize that you were acting that way?
I still act that way. It's ego is a tricky thing, man. Your ego is there to protect you, but your ego is also there to make you do great things. So it's not a bad thing. It's just something you have to be mindful of, in my opinion, because I think without your ego, I don't think you could say, I want to be the best bodybuilder in the world or one of the best bodybuilders in the world. You have to have some ego to be able to say that and actually follow through on it. So I don't think it's a bad thing, but the problem is when your ego gets so big that it starts interfering with you being a good person, then it's a problem. And I think that was happening for me earlier on. And it's tough. It might not all be ego. My anxiety played a part in that too, because, you know, I've also talked about on the podcast that my anxiety led me to be very quiet around people. And people took that silence as being cocky or arrogant when really it was just fear of being around people. And I just kind of kept to myself. But the ego portion of it was, yeah, there was a period of time where I thought, okay, I turned pro. That means I'm somebody important and everybody should just want to be around me and everybody should just listen to me and everybody should just do what I say when it comes to bodybuilding. And I should just get money and I should just get contracts and I should just, I deserve this and I deserve that. And that's all very arrogant and very ego driven. And I think it was around like, you know, I think it's funny in life, like once you're dealt a few losses or some adversity, it humbles you. And I think every time I lost a show or every time and I don't mean like if I took fifth or sixth, I mean like there was some shows where I was like second place and I thought I could win and I didn't. Those kind of shows kind of stick with you and they humble you a little bit. And you know, that in combination with tearing muscles and having to come back from injury and battle adversity and maybe being fired from contracts, like having a company tell you, look, we don't need you anymore. We're going to go a different direction. All those things in your life kind of start to humble you a little bit. And you realize, hey, you know what? Maybe I'm not as important as I thought I was, you know? And then you also hear rumblings. You're like, you know, people, you see things online. Oh, Fouad's cocky, Fouad's arrogant. And I still see those things now, but it's not as prevalent. It was more prevalent back in the day. And it bothered me. I was like, I don't want to be that guy. And I think the first time it took a real turn, you know, I used to work with a life coach. His name's Alvin Brown. And he, as we were trying to deal with my anxiety, he would help me without trying to, he helped me become a better person and learn that, you know, people should be treated a certain way, but I still hadn't really figured it out. Like it sunk in a little bit, but I hadn't learned how to practice it. And it wasn't, I think, until I met John Meadows in 2014. I think I was 34 years old. Watching John and being mentored by John was big, very, very big for me in my life. Because John Meadows is a very respected person and people see him as being very genuine and very caring. And you never hear John say anything bad about anybody. You never hear John, as important and as popular as John is, you would think he was the guy that lives next door and he's not important at all. So that was kind of when I saw the way his clients and his fans reacted with him and the way he treated people, the way he always got back to everybody's messages and the way he always tried to encourage people. I was like, okay, I think that seems like the better way to go in life. And that was kind of where I started to make that turn for changing. But certain habits die hard. Like, you know, I'm not always that guy. I try to be, but you know, your old self is going to come back from time to time. So it's constantly a work in progress.
Yeah, you brought up John Meadows, and that's what I was just gonna talk about. Like, I heard you say that you wanted to be like more like him, and your New
Mhm.
Year's resolution was to be like Big Ramy. You want to like you
Yeah.
want to like go into places and like shake people's hands and have like a conversation with them and like be more respectful to people. So
Yeah.
I definitely think like that's good. Like
Yeah.
to go into a place and like just respect everyone.
Yeah. And that's something I've done for a long time. Like, I'll give you a perfect example. And this is very embarrassing and not something I'm very proud of, but like back in the day when I was very young or much younger, if we were at the gym training and I saw somebody doing something wrong, me and my training partners might laugh. They're like, look at that guy's doing that wrong. And we'd laugh at them and whatever. I think about 5 years ago, it got to a point, maybe 7 years ago. I remember we moved to Toronto and I was training at a different gym. And instead of laughing at people, I would walk over and say, hey, do you mind if I give you a hand? I think I can give you a couple tips that will make you, you know, do that a little bit better. And it felt so much better than making fun of people. And that was one of the things that I want to do. So now it's like I've changed from that guy that, I'm really not proud of, to the guy that will walk over and give somebody a hand that's a beginner or somebody who's doing something wrong. And it's much, much better. It's a better way to live, and it just feels better for me as a person.
Yeah, that is definitely a great change. Like, I was at the gym and someone asked me how to do something, and I tried to like explain it the best I could, and it
Yeah.
felt really good being able to help someone. And so
Yeah.
I really want to like just keep helping people.
Yeah.
Uh, but the next thing I want to talk about is your podcast, the
Mhm.
Bodybuilding and Bullocks. Can you tell me how this whole thing came together, and did you ever think that it would get as big as it is today?
Well, it's funny because I started the Real Bodybuilding podcast, which is like the umbrella of all of them. And I wanted it. The purpose was, at the time, this is the exact reason I started it. I looked around the bodybuilding world and I saw a lot of people online with YouTube channels that weren't bodybuilders. Well, I shouldn't say weren't competitive bodybuilders, weren't professional bodybuilders, that were talking about professional bodybuilding and about what we do and how we are and who we are as people. And I thought, that's not really fair. I'm like, you know what? Somebody who actually is a competitive bodybuilder should be doing that. If you look at basketball, or if you look at football, the guys on ESPN are all previous players. So I thought we should be doing the same thing. We should I wanted to be the representative. I'm like, no, I'll step up and I'll bring the guys on and I'll let everybody see who they really are, instead of these other people who are trying to tell you who they are and not doing a very good job of it. So I never imagined it would be as popular as it is now. But I was very conscious that I thought it would open people's eyes up to who people are. So I started doing it, and it started working out. Like, people would message me and be like, "Hey, I never knew that guest you had on was so nice. I'm going to follow him now. I think he's amazing." Or people would message me and say, "I thought that guest was really an asshole. He's not an asshole. He's actually very nice. You've changed my mind and my perspective about that guy." So those things felt good. And then I met Luke, and me and Luke did an episode together of the Real Bodybuilding podcast, and it was just fun. It seemed effortless and fun, and we laughed a lot. And I said to him after we were done, I said, "Hey, we should do this every week. I think people would really like the comedy side of it, the relaxed side of bodybuilding." And he agreed, and it rolled from there. So now we have Bodybuilding and Bollocks, which is exactly what the title says. It's a little bit of bodybuilding and a little bit of bollocks, and it's just, I think it's nice. The best example I can give you is Nick Walker. So
All
everybody,
Bullocks.
all bullocks. That's right. No, but the best example I can give. The reason I say Nick, and actually Luke too, to be honest with you, because people liked Luke or loved Luke, but not for the reasons they loved him for after he was on the show. People loved Luke because he looked really cool, and he was really strong in the gym, and he had a great physique. But I don't think people realized how funny he was and interesting he was. And I think that's what the show does. And the same thing happens with Nick, right? Like Nick Walker, he told me himself a few weeks ago. He said, "I didn't realize that people thought I was a mean person." He's like, all I keep getting is messages from people telling me how they had no idea I was this funny and no idea it was this nice and blah blah blah. And that's the reason for Bodybuilding and Bollocks. It was the reason to get people to see that we're human. We're just normal guys. We're just bigger. We're bigger than the average person, but we're not any different mentally. We go through the same struggles. We have the same sense of humor. And it's kind of just, I think that's the reason why it's become so popular, is people message me and they say, "I feel like I'm sitting with my friends." And it's exactly what the whole purpose was. So I'm happy with what's happened. I didn't expect it to be as popular as it is, but I'm happy it's going in the direction it's going.
You brought up Luke, and I wanted to just touch on that real quick. You unfortunately did lose him, which was very sad. I just started listening to your podcast then, and then when I heard that he passed, it was I thought it was very sad. But I wanted to know, like, was there ever a time after that where you wanted to quit, and what like gave you the drive to just keep going with this?
After Luke passed, I didn't want to do Bodybuilding Bollocks anymore. I was done. I was like, I'm not doing it anymore. If I do something else, we're just going to call it something different, and it's not going to be the same. It'll just be something different. And then I started getting messages from people. There was about a week there where the entire purpose was, Luke's GoFundMe, and people were saying sorry and sending their condolences and everything. But after that first week, there was a period of like fans that were fans of the show, that were messaging me saying how much, because there was a large conversation about mental health after Luke passed, and I don't remember the amount of messages, but it was a ton of messages from people saying how much the show had helped with their own mental health and making them feel like they weren't as lonely, and they had some friends online and we were their friends, and they looked forward to our show to give them like, a light for the week and give them some humor for the week. And anyway, all these messages start coming in, and I thought to myself, I kind of almost felt like it was a sense of purpose. Like, you know what? People really like this, and it seems to be helping people in some way. And maybe it can just go on in Luke's memory instead of not going on at all. So I got Luke's best friend, who was Ben Chow. And I said, you know what, Ben, why don't you come on and we'll just talk, and we'll just, you're not a superstar IFBB pro like Luke was, but it doesn't matter. You knew Luke and you were friends with Luke, and the show's not going to be as funny and it's not going to be as crazy, but we'll still do it in his memory. And Ben said, okay. And I think it's just gone. It took a while. I still have some fans that message now and say, I just came back to the show. I didn't really want to watch after Luke passed. But they've all, I don't know about all, but a lot of them have come back on board since, because I think they realize we're doing it kind of, I don't know. I feel like and this is maybe stupid to say, but I feel like if Luke was here, he would want us to keep doing it. And I think if he was watching, he'd be proud of what we're doing, and he would probably be laughing along with us. So, I just, yeah, I just felt like it was important to keep going, I guess. And I just, like I said, I think if he's watching, I think he's probably happy that it's going, and I think he's probably laughing along at the same time.
Yeah. There was someone in our community that I interviewed last year, and he went by the name Comic military and I was very thankful that I was able to interview him because on it was a month after, I think, I heard that he passed, and it was during my birthday party that I found out about that. That
Oh, wow.
really like took me down because I was good friends with him. He was into fitness too. We would always joke around and talk about like CT Fletcher and people like those,
Yeah.
and we would just talk about fitness sometimes on Instagram. And I was so thankful just to be able to talk with him and interview him
Yeah.
before he passed. It was very sad.
Well, nice. I mean, the silver lining of that is you'll always have that interview.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I actually cherish, like, somebody said to me I should take down all the episodes of Luke. And I said, no, it's the opposite. I'm like, that's like a shrine to who he was. Like, people get to see and laugh and feel who he was. Like, I'll never ever take that down.
Yeah.
And if YouTube ever shuts my channel down, I have all the videos. I'll just put them back up somewhere else. So no, it's like a really cool thing to have hours of footage. And it's same for you. Like, having that interview is got to be, nice to have after the fact.
Yeah. We keep our video up with him. We don't want to take that down. We want people, like you said, we want people to remember who he was, and just keep his memory alive.
Yeah.
But now I want to talk about your company that you have, Hostile. You do have a lot of competition to go up against. You have like Redcon 1, you have Gymshark, you got Seth Feroci's AAR. What made you want to jump into this market basically at the start of quarantine? And how did you keep your business from going under at that time and make it into a success?
Man, that's looking back at it, it's crazy because we didn't expect to start at the start of quarantine. Obviously there was months of planning before the company launched. So the launch date had been chosen far before any of this pandemic stuff had come up, because I think the first reports of the pandemic had started in January, but we had started planning for the company in September. So, there was already months of work done, and we didn't think they were going to shut anything down. We just thought, okay, there's something going on and whatever. So we had planned to launch in March, and we had our launch date. And I think it was like 2 days after our launch date where they shut all the gyms down. And it was like, oh my God, what are we going to do? So I started doing I did a few home workouts on YouTube, and I think it's weird. I really feel like our support, like, I have 20 years in this game, and I think I've made a lot of mistakes, but I think I've done a lot of good things too. And I think I've built a really good fan base. They know I'm real and I'm pretty honest, and I don't kind of beat around the bush. And I honestly think people just wanted to support us. I don't know what other reason. Like, there was a pandemic and gyms were closed down and stuff. People were still buying stuff. So I think the first reason people kept buying stuff is they just wanted to support us. I think they wanted to see the brand do well. The second reason is me and my wife primarily run the company, and I think we put our best foot forward on everything. Like, Summer is my wife. She's got 20 years in the industry in all different facets of work. Like, she's helped with formulation, she's done research, she's development, she's done marketing, she's done copy editing, she was editor-in-chief at a major magazine for a little while. She's got all the skills, right? So between the two of us, we kind of formulated the products together, and we did the labels, and we did everything. We put our best foot forward in every aspect of the company. And I think people saw that. People got the shirts, and the message I got back about the shirts was, "Oh, these aren't regular supplement." And you're wearing one. People were like, "Oh, these aren't regular supplement shirts. They're nice and they fit good and XYZ." And then the supplements came out, and people were like, "Oh, these formulas look different. There's a lot more stuff in them." And so I think all these things in combination, like, look, I think when you're in an industry, when you're right, there is so much competition. There is a Redcon, there is an Axe and Sledge, there is all these other companies. What are you going to do to set yourself apart? It's like your podcast, right? Like, what are you going to do to set yourself apart? And what we decided to do was, okay, let's spend more money on the labels. Let's spend more money on the formulas. Let's not be a margin first company. Let's be a performance first company. And it's going to be a lot slower way to grow, because people are going to, they're going to have to pay a little bit more for our product than, like, say, a Redcon's product. But I feel like that's our culture. That's who we are. We put our best foot forward all the time, and a lot of people recognized it. And it's been let's just put it this way. We've definitely exceeded our first year's goal. We have one more month left in our year, and we've already exceeded our goal. So I think people have kind of noticed what we're doing.
Yeah. Like this past Christmas, I got a ton of shirts and from you, because
Yeah.
I've been listening to you for a long time, so I wanted some of your shirts so I could
Yeah.
like show like the stuff that you make.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I appreciate it, man.
yeah,
How do
no
you think they
problem.
fit? Everything fits good?
Yeah, I'm small, so this small is kind of big for me. So
What's your favorite style? That's what I want to know.
like, what do you mean?
Like your favorite design. Like, what's your favorite shirt design?
I have the gray and the black baseball tee.
Oh,
I
okay.
really like that one.
The Raglan, yeah. That's the Dark Knight Raglan. That's cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
The last question I have for you before the bonus question is for me. I want to hear from you about social media. Now, I hate naming names, but my coach gets nervous when it comes to like being on camera and taking like pictures for Instagram, because like I want him to like show himself and like try and get his name out there so he gets like more business. And I heard you trying to get like Cedric McMillan to get in front of the camera, but like he said that this isn't for him. But I want to hear from you on how important it is to be a part of social media for the sport. Like, I know that this isn't the highest paying thing in the world unless you win like a Arnold or Olympia, but like doing YouTube and Instagram and things like that really help bring in money, growing your fan base, and like getting more eyes on you. Like, for example, like we listened to like this person called Gary V, and he's all about like business and getting your name out. And he
Yeah.
says that you should be like posting multiple times a day on different social medias to help grow your name and get more people to know you. So what
Yeah.
do you have to say about social media?
Wow, it's a big question. Starting with your coach, and people like that. I'm one of those people, and nobody would know. They're like, "Wow, you post all the time, and you do the podcast, and you look." I think everybody has self doubt, and everybody has their own insecurities. They may be insecure about the way they look. They may be insecure about the way they sound. They may be insecure about how smart they are, or how much intelligence they have, or how knowledgeable they are about a subject. And all of those doubts keep people from doing things. Somebody may not post. They're like, "Oh, I don't look so good today," or "I'm not good looking enough to post," or maybe if it's a bodybuilder, like, "Well, I'm not big as Dexter Jackson, so I'm not going to post because I don't look like Dexter looks." So there's a host of reasons why you can make up. There's a host of things you can create in your mind that will make you not want to post. Um, at the end of the day, though, you have to ignore those doubts. Like, look, I get very nervous for my podcast. Okay. Like, I specifically remember one podcast with Missy Trescott where before we started, I said to her, "I got to let you know, I'm extremely nervous right now." And she said, "I'm really nervous too." I said, "Okay, great." I said, "So we're going to stutter through this whole interview. That's perfect." And I honestly was so embarrassed because we were going along and the interview was going well, the podcast is going well. And about 45 minutes in, because I don't write any notes. Like, you're very professional. You have your notes, you have your questions, you know what you want to talk about. I'm kind of like a flying by the seat of my pants. I just like to talk and have a conversation. So I was so nervous. About 40 minutes in, I went dead blank, and I didn't know what to say. And I had no questions. And we were just sitting there staring at each other. And I said, "I'm really sorry. I'm drawing a blank." I'm like, "I'm going to have to edit this part out, but just give me a second." That's how nervous I was. So it's like, and then, I gathered myself and I asked her another question and we kept rolling with it. And I just chopped that part out of the interview. But it's very hard. It's very hard to be the social media guy if you're not one of those people, but you have to do it if this is the life you want to live. And that's kind of what you got to tell your coach and tell other people like that is, and that's why I tell Cedric, I'm like, "Look, if this is a life you want to lead, if you want to get that check every month from your sponsor, if you want to have fans that are going to be behind you, you have to ignore your own thoughts because other people aren't thinking them." Like, Cedric may think he looks, this is how funny it is. Cedric McMillan, who is arguably top 5 in the world at his best, thinks he sucks. Okay. We're talking about a person who is potentially like one of the best. If he could figure out everything, he would be one of the best in the IFBB. And even he thinks he's not good enough. So it's not something anybody should be embarrassed about. It's kind of what we all have it. It's just some people are able to ignore it and move on, and some people are not. And that's kind of what I tell people is like, look, if it's something you want to achieve in life, if it's something you want to do, you have to ignore the doubts and you have to move forward anyway. There's nothing bad can come from trying except failing, but then you just keep trying. I mean, it's not, nothing can hurt you by trying to better yourself or better your business or teach people something online. So sometimes you just have to look. Everybody, even me, when I'm at the gym, I'm embarrassed to shoot a video sometimes. "Oh, I got to shoot like a video doing a bicep curl or doing a squat or something." I'm like, "I don't want to film that. I just want to squat. I just want to go to the gym and do my thing." But that's not how it works. It's like you have a business, you have a job, you have a responsibility, and you have something you're trying to create. And that doesn't happen if you don't ignore those feelings. And so that's kind of what I would tell your coach is, if you want to have that business grow, you're going to have to set your feelings aside and do the work that you have to do anyways.
Yeah, like I record in the gym, but there are days where I'm just like, I just want to go and train. I don't want to record today, but I know I have to do it to show that I take this seriously, and I show that I don't want to like fail at this. I want to show people that I can actually do this.
Yeah.
And with Cedric, I saw him put out like a short little video saying like him going in the gym and recording himself isn't for him. He thinks that he shouldn't do that, and it's not like his style.
Hmm.
but I think it's
Yeah.
definitely something that people have to do.
I think one of the ways I've learned to help myself is it's going to help other people, right? If you make it a personal thing, then you feel like you're being like, okay, if you're not an arrogant person, or you're not I don't even want to say arrogant because that's a negative term, but if you're not an outwardly like, I want to show everybody who I am and this and that, if you're not that kind of person, if you're more of an introvert, social media is never going to feel normal, right? Like, so when you make it personal, it becomes very hard if you're an introvert, because you're like, I don't want to show myself to the world. I just want to be me and do what I want to do. But if you make it about other people, it becomes easier. So for you, for example, it's not that you're just showing how hard you work. It's also that you're showing other 15-year-olds. You're 15, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So you're showing other 15-year-olds that, look, this is what, if you want to do this, you can do it too. You just have to go to the gym and train and eat and blah, blah, blah. And that makes it easier for people. Like for me, like, I'll give you an example. If I did the podcast and I said the podcast is to make me popular, it wouldn't work. It would be fake. It wouldn't be right. But when I make it about other people, I'm like, no, I want to make these other bodybuilders really popular, and I want to make bodybuilding itself more popular. Then it becomes easier to overcome your anxiety or your nervousness. So using your coach as an example again, if he was to look at it like, hey, I know if people see the way I train, they're going to benefit, then he wouldn't feel so embarrassed. He would be like, oh, I'm actually helping people. So that's the reason I'm doing it. So it's not vain. It's not arrogant. It's not cocky. It's actually benefiting somebody else.
Yeah, like
So,
you brought up like how you want to like help people. Not too long ago, me and my dad made a video about like these 5 like smaller YouTube channels that you should like watch, because I wanted to like push them so more people could have eyes on them, because they really know what they're talking about. So I
yeah.
just wanted to like show that these people are like, they know what they're talking about, and they can have more people watching their stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Now, my bonus question to you, the very last thing, is that something that I ask all my guests of this show is for people like me, who aren't the most popular kid in school and want to do great things in this world. In school, I'm not popular at all. I have many outlets for that, though. I train, I do jiu-jitsu, I wrestle, and I read comic books, and I do this YouTube channel. But I think that all these people want to hear from you, someone who made it in their career doing something they love. So my question to you is, what advice do you have for people that are stuck in life right now but want to do great things?
Oh man, this is such a central theme of the of a I don't know, I don't want to call it a campaign me and my wife are doing. Uh this is so crazy that you said that. We have a slogan. I have a kind of a slogan that I've developed or established, is tomorrow will be better. And it's actually based on a mental health campaign that we're working on. But it's the same, kind of really runs along the same lines that you're talking about. Look, I wasn't a popular kid in school either, especially grade school. Grade school, I couldn't find out. I didn't know who I was. I felt out of place. I was the only colored kid in my school. Everybody was white. I felt weird. I felt out of place. Um, and then in grade school, I ran with a nice clique and we had fun. I had really good friends, but they weren't like the popular guys. They were like kind of the second tier, I guess. So, um, but yeah, it's funny, man, because it's like I said about going to school with like not the best clothes or not the best shoes. Tomorrow will be better. It's like it doesn't matter. Like I almost think like the people that have it the hardest growing up are the people that end up the best. Like if I met you in 10 years and you were like doing amazing things, I would not be shocked, because it's like we not being the most popular people makes you, like you said, find other things, the podcast, the wrestling, the jiu-jitsu, the powerlifting, and it makes you more of a well-rounded person. And I think it also teaches you work ethic and teaches you how to deal with things. It teaches you how to deal with adversity, teaches you how to deal with bullying, and teaches you how to deal with, not being invited to this party or that party, or not being able to go out with this girl or that girl. And I remember all of those things very, very clearly. But those things become driving forces, and they just teach you to deal with things, hardships that other people don't really have to deal with. And it almost makes you better later on in life. So my message to people that are going through that kind of thing is tomorrow will be better. It's like, just keep doing, focus on doing the things that are good for you and good for people. Don't ever get in the mud with people that like to stoop real low, and like, focus on yourself. One of the things, Branch Warren was on my podcast one day, and we were talking about business, and I asked him about because he's got the beef jerky company called Wicked Cuts, and it's a saturated market. There's a million different beef jerky companies. And I'm like, Branch, what are you doing? Do you look around at these other companies and see, what's going on and what they're doing? Does it freak you out? And he said, I just stay in my lane. I just stay in my lane. And, he said the same thing about bodybuilding. He said, I never looked at Jay and what Jay was doing. I never looked at Kai and what Kai was doing. He's like, I just stayed in my lane. I did it my way. I do it the best way I knew how. And I got to the top doing it doing it the best, putting my best into everything. And honest to God, ever since I had that podcast, every single time, because with our social media age, we're constantly comparing. I know people say not to compare, but you're constantly comparing. Oh, this guy is doing this new thing. That guy got this new car. This guy bought, or in your case, it might be like somebody got, something you wanted, whatever it may be, but you're constantly comparing. And after I did that podcast, it's really interesting. Every time I start comparing, I kind of pull myself back, and I'm like, stay in your own lane. Just stay in your own lane, and keep your foot to your pedal down, and do the best you can do in your lane, and everything will work out. And that's become like the central theme of my life, is stay in your lane. And if you notice on my Instagram, I have a hashtag. It says walk your own path. And that's exactly what that means. It's walk your own path, not anybody else's path, and do it to the best of your ability. And tomorrow will be better. And that's kind of like the entire platform for the entire campaign for what I think it is for people going through hardships or mental strength issues or mental health issues, and people dealing with bullying, and people dealing with any of those things, where it's like, because it's very hard when you're stuck in the moment. You feel like life is crashing all around you, and nothing will be better, and everything's a mess, and it's very, very hard to have perception and see what's tomorrow and what's down the road.
Yeah. Like at school, I sit alone at lunch. I don't like, no one sits next to me at lunch. Uh, like, no matter how hard of a day I have at school, like no matter how bad it is, it may suck, it may be terrible, but I always just come home, I go to the gym, and I train, because I know I want to become better, and this is what I'm trying to do. I don't care what happens at school, as long as I'm doing what I want to do, and as long as I keep moving forward and I'm not going backwards, then I'm doing the right thing.
Yeah. 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 And I think that's a very, very good, very good outlook. I think if people would just focus on, no matter how old or young, I think if people would just focus on making themselves the best that they can be. And I know that sounds really cheesy. I know it sounds really fluffy, and there's no substance to it, but it's really the bottom line. If you just focus on, it's like Jordan Peterson says, you kind of, if you clean up your own room, which is the metaphor for getting your own life in order. If you can get your own life in order, you're not going to worry about other things in life. You're not going to worry about, you're not, you can't point at other people and worry about other things until your own life is in order. And I just think that's the basic point of it, is worry about what you're doing and do it the best you can.
Yeah. Well, Fouad, I just want to say thank you for doing this podcast. I hope you liked it.
Yeah.
I had a blast. I didn't expect you to actually like come say yes to the interview, so it blew me away. I was so happy when you said you
Yeah.
wanted to do it. So
No,
thank
man,
you again.
I'm more than happy to be here. And actually, I'm surprised we're cutting it this short. I feel like we should just keep talking, but no, I appreciate you having me on, man. I think you're doing a really cool thing. And I really hope you see it through and it ends up being something huge. And you know what? I'm going to do my best to help you get whoever I know on the show with you, because it's pretty awesome what you're doing, man. I think it's really, really cool.
Oh,
So,
that means so much to me. Thank
yeah.
you so much.
Yep.
But I did want to ask, what was your reaction when you got an email from a kid asking you to be interviewed by me?
My first reaction was, what is this? I was like, who's this kid that has a podcast? I'm like, because I like, you look really young. So I'm like, that was my very first reaction. And then I went and looked at it. I'm like, this is pretty cool. I'm like, it's a lot of people start podcasts. You obviously can see there's hundreds, right?
Yeah.
I don't know how many people put all their effort into it. And I think when I saw your podcast, I'm like, this kid is really giving it a go. Like, he's not just fooling around. That's kind of was my thought. I'm like, he's got his questions prepared. He's got the microphone. He's got himself set up. He's got a good setup. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to do it. Everybody deserves a shot. And I don't think I'm going to be the guy who blows your podcast up, but I thought, who am I to say no? So I thought, I just thought it was a pretty cool thing you're doing. And I thought we'd have a fun conversation. So yeah.
Well, thanks again for doing this. You made my day. And so I thank you again, Fouad.
Thank you for having me on, man. I appreciate it.
Well, there you have it, everyone. Another episode with 5 questions with the beast in the book. And I really mean it. Fouad Abiad is such a great person. He has opened the door for so many things. The last 2 weeks have been absolutely incredible. My last interview with Dan Panosian and now this one with Fouad. Man, I cannot believe that this is happening in my life. I'm so happy. Now, at the beginning of the video, I did say that there was some big news. Now, the big news is that Fouad opened the door for me to come on his podcast and talk with other bodybuilders about everything and just have a great time. And I think the biggest news, the most amazing news, is that he was able to get Seth Feroce to come onto this podcast. Now, I've been watching Seth for close to 5 years now. He was the first fitness bodybuilding guy I've ever watched, so being able to talk with him is going to be awesome. I hope you all enjoyed this video. Please subscribe, give it a like, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any more of these awesome interviews. With all that being said, I'm Will the Beast, and I'll catch you in the next episode with 5 questions with the Beast.